Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special edition of Spiritual Spotlight Series. We have an extraordinary panel of experts joining us here to deep dive into the fascinating realms of astrology and numerology, exploring the cosmic wisdom that will guide us through 2025. So, whether you're a seasoned stargazer, numerology enthusiast, or simply curious about what's written in the stars and numbers, you're in for an enlightening conversation. So, I'm going to start it off by introducing our wonderful panel. Bethany, if you could please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I work as an astrologer and relationship expert. I do a lot of love astrology, a lot of zodiac compatibility. I have a book out, The Secret Energetics of Relationships. So it deals a lot with how our astrology guides our energetics and how we relate to each other, the cosmos, natural cycles, all of those types of things. So that's kind of mainly what I do.
I love that. Enjoy. Can you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Numerologist. I've been involved in numerology since ever, like 17 years now. I had a long corporate career and I left that, and I didn't think this was a real job, but it is. And now I also have a book, The Beginner's Guide to Numerology, and I'm working on my second one.
Oh, amazing. We'll definitely have to make sure that as we're wrapping this up, where we can find both of you. So, Bethany, what excites you most about the cosmic landscape of 2025?
I think for me, it feels like it's kind of catching up with some of the things that we've all sort of been feeling, but didn't really maybe have words or concepts to put to it. I think a lot of us for a long time have felt very uncomfortable with kind of the 9 to 5 jobs, maybe even, healthcare, technology, um, traditional roles of education, marriage, like just kind of a general disease and discomfort sort of with maybe our lives. And we see that a lot in, the 50% divorces and just all of the high rates of depression, anxiety. So I think what's really going to be exciting about 2025 is like some of these illusions that we've felt we're going to start to be able to see, and we already see that starting to happen, right? We're seeing the disillusionment of our society and kind of um, what's working, what's not. And I think we're going to be able to get a lot more language and visual to kind of give us something to work with as we move more into 2025. So I think a lot of us, especially people who are empathic or work in kind of the spiritual work, like we've been kind of under that pressure for a while of this isn't working. Like this is so uncomfortable. Like how do people not see why this isn't working? And now it's kind of like catching up for a lot of us, and even those of us that maybe didn't have language for it or fully understand it. It's like, oh, that's why this feels so bad. Or like this is why I can't just like punch this clock and be happy. It's like like really recognizing that some of the societal norms are not set up for our inherent energetics, for our natural cycles. And now we're starting to see that as 2025 unrolls. And even just sort of like the kind of deification of celebrities, or I mean all of that, where we're just sort of feeling things are off. It's all starting to come out and we're starting to get a good grasp of it, and we can kind of take that information, and we're seeing through all these types of illusions that have sort of ruled us. So it's the ability to take our freedom back because we have the language to say this isn't working, this is why it's not working, how do I actually want to live? If this isn't what I want, what is it that I do want? And now we're sort of breaking into that. And I think the astrology that's coming up, all these like massive shifts in how we're doing things, the nodes are shifting, Pluto shifted. I mean, just so many of the planets are shaking things up, and we're really looking at kind of the revolution of that, of like how do we start breaking these things apart and realigning them in a more natural way.
Looks like a lot of big changes are coming. And for you, Joy, what excites you? What excites you most about the cosmic landscape of 2025?
Well, everything in numerology runs on a 1 through 9 cycle, and we are now entering our 9 universal year. So 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 5 equals 9. And this is where, if you haven't given it up and you've been asked to, this is where the universe can kind of rip it out of your bloody nails. Like if you've been hanging on too tight, now it's going to go regardless. And so it's a complete revolution and reinvention. And it's really important for people to learn that skill of letting go and forgiveness. And this is where the universe will force it. And so I love the idea of people sort of like, it's year of the snake. Lunar New Year is coming up at the end of January. If you think of them as shedding their skin, this is really a chance for people to shed and let go and really get rid of anything they've been carrying that doesn't serve them. And a year to forgive each other and heal the divide, because everything has been so polarized. But one thing for sure is that nothing will look the same on the other side of 2025.
I find that fascinating. And you said it's the year of the snake. So what if it is your personal year of the snake? How would that sounds like a double whammy to me.
It will be. And if you're in a 9 personal year and we're experiencing 9 collective year, which Bethany is, um, we will, it is going to be an intensification of that energy.
Wow, that's fascinating. And we have our wonderful Annabella that has joined us. So Anna, if you could very quickly tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, hi ladies. So sorry for joining late. I had 5:30 Eastern on my, but you know what? Everything happens for a reason. So this is when I was supposed to join. Well, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Annabella. I'm the owner and founder of Spiritual Lab, and I'm an intuitive energy reader, healer, clairvoyant, and one day we'll find one word to encompass all of the above. So yes, thanks for having me.
So so tell us what excites you about 2025 in the cosmic landscape.
Oh my goodness.
What
Yeah,
doesn't
loaded
excite you?
question, right? What doesn't excite all of us? 2025 is going to bring us definitely into a new plane of energy. Um, and collectively, on a human level and a planetary level, Mother Earth is going to go through many more changes that will affect human life as a whole. I think some of these changes are part of our collective ascension, and other ones are very man-made. But regardless of what happens, I am super, super ready and intrigued and interested and here for it all.
So with our upcoming, swearing of our new president, that's going to create a lot of maybe challenges or whatnot. Joy, how do you see with Trump coming into the presidency might affect the United States or the world as a whole?
Yeah, so nothing looks the same on the other side of 2024, or sorry, 2025. So every year builds upon the last. And in our 8 year, which was 2024, we were asked to find balance. We were asked to balance our spiritual and material worlds. And if that didn't happen, this year is where the universe has extra tools to kind of force it. There will be a lot of endings, a lot of structures, big institutions that are kind of gutted and ripped apart and hopefully built back better. I will say I'm Canadian, so we just had a big election
Oh
drama
yeah,
here as well.
he resigned.
Yeah. So there's numbers for everything, and you can look at that and see how the trajectory went for that cycle. He is now in a personal 1 year. So it was kind of that halo effect where Justin Trudeau at the very end of his 9 year, there was some shadows. This is what's happening. And in numerology, there's patterns. And so at the end of 24, November and December actually repeat themselves January, February. So there was writing on the wall about this in November and December. Now in January, it became official. So everyone can look at their own charts and see what was happening for them in November and December and know that it set up a little bit of a theme or something's showing up for completion in the beginning. So it's Groundhog Day, which is why New Year's never feels super fresh. But in terms of the political landscape, it very much feels like sand. Like you just I can't like feel like it's something I can hang on to or grasp. So I think it's too volatile right now. And with the unprecedented astrology going on, numerology and astrology always complement each other.
Yeah.
They rarely, if ever, contradict. And so, yeah, I say expect the unexpected and you have no choice. You're here for it. So,
Buckle up.
yep.
Buttercup.
Buckle up, Buttercup. So, Bethany, what major cosmic alignments or planetary shifts can we expect in 2025? And how might these influence global and personal energies?
Yeah, well, one of the big ones we're looking at is the nodes shifting, and the nodes are really kind of the north and south stars of our lives, of our individual charts, especially. And it's interesting because it's actually matching up with my individual chart. So I have a Pisces North Node and a Virgo South Node, and that's what we're kind of looking at. And that really is, again, just kind of getting out of some of these very traditional ways of seeing things and starting to see things kind of from our own personal lines of integrity and our own kind of vision. It's like kind of our own psychic vision being really heightened, and our spirituality, our spiritual lives being really heightened. And also just kind of like, I think it's giving us the insight that we're now seeing what the divide is. It's very clear. When we have that sort of polarity, that gives us a very clear indication of what we need to work on, what we need to heal, because when it's under the surface, we have kind of a feel for it, but now it's very open, that divisive polarity. And actually through that, that's really how we can begin to heal and come back together and create that forgiveness that Joy was kind of talking about. That is such a huge theme that we're going into, is learning like these concepts of mercy and forgiveness and understanding and compassion, and just a lot of things that we're maybe not feeling a lot of right now. But I think we're going to start moving towards that, because that polarity is not going to give us much of a choice, because to really elevate out of the duality, we have to learn to work with both the energetics. I mean, our whole universe, or our whole existence, really is that duality: the feminine, the masculine, the black, the white, the light, the dark. Like we see it that way. And to elevate out of it, we have to learn to hold both of it equally. So now we're really getting into that. And I think the shifting of the nodes, we have the Pluto, that is such a huge shift, because we're really looking at that, entering into innovation, new ways of doing things again, just sort of all of these aspects are just really shaking up our foundations, even our sense of stability. We've seen that a lot with, like, some of the bigger aspects that have been happening. A lot of people feeling very ungrounded, because it's like your kind of energetic rug has been pulled out from under you, but it's to allow you to find your own sense of stability and understanding of things. Because if you're kind of relying on that sense of authority to guide you, which a lot of us are, then you're always going to be led in a direction that maybe isn't aligned for you. So that, again, is that Pisces nugget of being our own leaders and our own intuitives, of finding our own prophecies and figuring out what's going to work for us versus what ritualistically has worked in the past, or what we've sort of fallen into in almost a dogmatic way. This is something that's going to lead us, because we're going to be the leaders of our own lives. We're not really comfortable being in the group mentality of one size life fits all. So now we're kind of starting to explore that. And I think we see that a lot already being reflected in people starting their own businesses or their own, we've seen such a huge rise in that. And I think that, again, is people kind of getting in touch with their own intuition and setting up their own alignment. And I think that's huge, and more of what we're going to see too coming in.
I find that fascinating. So, Anna, you kind of mentioned a little bit ago to buckle up, Buttercup. So, what should the listener do if we're like, I mean, because the energies that are coming onto the planet for last year was super intense. And I would imagine it's going to be even more intense this year. We're experiencing fires. We have a new president that's very volatile coming in. We have a lot of these, like P. Diddy, the celebrities falling down. Like, it's a lot of like shock and awe, it feels like. So, what can somebody do to maybe ease that way that maybe 2025 might feel like?
Yeah, well, first things first, don't judge that, oh my God. Be curious about it, lean into it, embrace it, in that it's a very human reaction and emotion to feel unsettled, to go through some shock and awe about what's happening on our planet. The second thing is listen to Rachel's podcast.
Go to all of the people on this panelist.
I don't have one, but listen to Bethany's, Joy's, and and that's my way of saying tap in and stay connected to the unseen forces, to trust it. If you zoom out of human life and know that there's a bigger picture, that there are other things at play, and ultimately everything is on a trajectory for a reason, or trajectories, plural. I find that it centers my clients very much to zoom out. Look to the stars, look to the planets, look to numerology, look to astrology, look to cosmic forces, look to your prayers, your meditations, your guides, whatever it is beyond the physical. When the physical shakes you up, I look to the unseen to help ground me.
That's beautiful advice, really is. Now for you, Joy, how can numerology guide individuals in maybe setting and achieving their goals for 2025?
Most important thing for an individual to know would be their personal year. So if you can figure out what your energies are for this year, what they support, that is going to be your best guide. It will give you always a true north for what you should be working on and where you can make the most progress and have the most potential. I mean, there's years that are better for love than others. There's years that are great to start a business. There's years where you will end up being sort of a medical advocate for someone or dealing with your own health issues. So knowing your personal year is probably the single most important thing. And if you put your energy there and align with that, it will guide you and you will make massive progress. And it's a super easy number for everyone to figure out. It's your month plus day of birth reduced to a single digit. So that's it. And there's a formulas page on my website if anyone is having trouble with that, where you can figure it out.
Yeah, I remember when I had our wonderful interview, Joy, and you're like, Rachel, 3, you might expand. Make sure you're watching what you eat. And I was like, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
In a 3 year, a lot of people do gain weight. But this year is actually even easier for people to figure out their personal year because we're in a 9 universal year. Everyone is in the same personal year as their attitude number. So whatever your month and day of birth is, that is your personal year. So super easy.
Super easy. Now, can you, for the maybe that somebody doesn't know what an attitude number is, can you maybe just tell us a little bit about what is an attitude number and why is that significant?
Yeah, month plus day of birth. So for you, Rachel, I'm gonna August 5th, if anyone wants to send Rachel a gift. 8 for August, 8th month, plus 5 equals 13. So your attitude number is a 13, and that becomes a 4. But it tells you a little bit more about your personality in there. I know you have a 5 birthday, which loves the spotlight. It's a great storyteller. It is adventurous. And then you've got a 13-4 attitude, and that is a little bit of karma on it. So that one has the lessons of procrastination. There would have been a past life where you didn't use your talents to your full ability. And so in this lifetime, you're going to walk a fine line between procrastination and greatness, trying to control everything. So
I will say that I feel like that. I feel like sometimes I'm like, I'm not doing enough. It's a weird energy. It's a weird energy.
So for this year, you're going to be in a 4 personal year. So you're going to want to, like I said, pay attention to the medical system. We all remember 4 energy from 2020. So medical system had a lot going on there. There was a lot of influence. But for you, it's going to be more about laying a good foundation and making sure that everything you do is done properly, crossing T's, dotting I's, taking care of details. And when you combine that with your personal month, that's where you can really get magical. And I even go down to the day. I think we talked about that last time.
Yeah, I love it.
I get my hair cut on 6 days. I do certain things at certain times because 6 rules beauty. So
Love that. And I will say it's going to be even more interesting for me as somebody who is a registered nurse running a doctor's office.
So
So
there's a big theme there. But this could also be the year where you perhaps could break free of that if you wanted a career
want to
change.
break free. Yes, I love it. And interesting enough, for those in the United States and having the issue with United Healthcare, our organization is now dropping United Healthcare.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, so
Anyway,
there's already that
it's shaking
tearing
up.
down of
Structures.
structures and things
Mhm.
happening. Yeah.
That's fascinating. So, Bethany, can you maybe provide some key insights for maybe some certain zodiac signs that maybe jump out to you for 2025? And what signs might feel the most changes?
I
All of
mean,
them.
they're all real. I mean, we really are just experiencing on personal levels so many individual changes. Like, and it's really going to depend on as things kind of shift in different full moons. It's hard to say, I guess, in my opinion, any that are going to really get the hardest hit. I know some astrologers have kind of their predictive aspects of that. I really think, and it can be with like the node switching, or if you have, you know, really active Jupiter planet or Neptune or anything that's like really shaking up, you can really feel that if you have crowded houses around it. But I guess for me, I really think that, I mean, everybody's gonna get hit with
Walloped.
something, right? Like, so any there's gonna be a lot of, I think, like ancestor clearing, karmic stuff, anything again, like Joy had said, that you're holding on to, like you're really gonna have that in your face of what needs to be cleared. And I think what I've kind of been telling my clients is just sort of taking things one pattern at a time, because you're really your own best guide. And you and the universe are in this dance, and you know what is going to be most important for you to clear. So if you have something that's a pattern that's really in your face, that's what you need to work on, right? Like I could look at a chart and say, like, this is probably what you're going to have coming up. But I think that can get a little overwhelming too for people, especially with everything that's going on. So I've just kind of been telling people, honestly, like, take a step back and just observe what's happening. And if things come up, to really, the biggest one I've seen a lot of too is that emotional piece. Like a lot of us have these backlog of emotions that we've been racing our lives through, right? Because we're like, I can't deal with that now. I have to go to work. I can't deal with that now. I have kids. I can't deal with that now. And the universe is like, well, guess what? It's not going any further than this year. So you're going to get to deal with it. And that's what I'm really seeing a lot of. And so I've just been kind of telling people to, yeah, just sit back and observe. And if something comes up, just sit with it. Even if it feels heavy or extreme, or if you're like, I'm going to cry for 3 days if I deal with it, it's like, then take the weekend and cry it out. Like, just get it moving, because it's going to keep coming around in a more extreme way. And so, whatever patterning is coming up for you, that's your lesson. That's what you need to be working on, because the universe is giving you that opportunity to do so. So, I think it's just even so personal and karmic. So, like, you might have a theme that's hitting on your zodiac sign, but I think it's just getting down to such personal aspects, I guess. So, it's like, even if technically your sign is working on, if it's falling into this house and you should be working on something around health, you personally might have other issues going on that's going to affect you more in your personal relationships. So you're like, I cannot believe I ended up with this person again. Like, how did I do this? Like, and that's the pattern. That's like, I think, where you really just have to start observing your own life and going pattern by pattern, program by program, step by step of like, why is this coming around again? And working on that, and then letting that clear, and then just kind of moving on to the next step, because I think it's really just getting so personalized to our own karma, our own issues, our own patterning, that it's a little bit hard to even say like, oh, this sign is really gonna get hit. It's like, oh, we're all gonna get it. Like, everybody's got their own nugget coming.
And I think with what the advice that you're giving, it brings up what Anna said, to kind of like maybe have a distant lens, but be gentle with oneself. And maybe Anna, maybe you can touch on this, because you guys have all kind of mentioned this, that there's going to be repeating patterns, karmic ties, ancestor clearing. for maybe that somebody's not very versed in, spiritual practices, what does that look like for somebody that maybe is new to this?
Yeah, it could look like um, repeated habits that have a low vibrational or negative impact on your peace of mind. Um, Hamster on a wheel energy. So I'm running and running and kind of staying in one place. And so, in order to get off the wheel or to detach from any of those negative vibrations or habits that keep you in one place, um, I think it's going to be really important to clear house or to clean house. And so those things come up and that wheel keeps spinning because either maybe someone is not making a change that they've been wanting to make for quite some time, or fear or limited beliefs are blocking them from taking that next big step. And so I think those things keep coming up. So what keeps reoccurring? Bethany used the word patterns. I think that's a great word. What keeps rippling over and over again, and swarm around that and do something different. And sometimes the smallest choice or the smallest change could cause a ripple in another direction that's more aligned with you.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And Joy, like maybe I'm not sure if this is something you can touch on, but in digging into numerology, how can that help somebody like better prepare or maybe work through like we're all saying like these patterns or ancestor or karmic, I feel like having a tool such as numerology can help you maybe not feel so alone in working through this pattern or hamster wheel or something like that. How can numerology help that?
Numerology is a fabulous tool for building self-awareness and for really looking and identifying your karmic patterns. So if you're that oblivious to what's happening in your life, and some people just can't admit to themselves what's happening, or they're so conditioned by their environment or a parent or a relationship that they can't see their patterns. Numerology can cut right through and identify it. Like it's mathematical, it's written in your soul contract, it's there. And when you can look at it, you have to admit it first, you have to acknowledge the pattern, then you can heal the pattern. So I think in this year, I like looking at everything retrospectively. So I went back to 2016, which was our last 9 year. And that year there was a huge awakening and people seeking that spiritual tool, because I think when things stop making sense in the environment, you start looking for magical answers, and it's when you get so broken down that you're like, okay, I'll let me hear your hocus pocus, I'm into it. Like now I'm ready, I'm broken down enough that I can listen, I'll try anything. And
Yeah.
so that's kind of what Annabella was saying with, the hamster wheel and just changing that pattern.
And anyone can answer this. Do you all feel that for 2025 we'll have another like mass? I feel like 2024, a lot of people were awakening. Do you feel like it's going to be even more so in 2025? Anyone can take that.
The divide is going to get bigger. So there's people who are awakening, who want to awaken, and who are interested in bettering themselves. And then you're going to have people, I call them the muggles, the non-magical people that are completely uninterested. And it is almost that split reality. And they have such different views, or even if you hear them tell you about an event, that it's like, wow, did you ever see something different than I did? Like we are viewing the world through different lenses. So I just see a bigger divide, more opening, but like awakening, but bigger divide.
And how do you think this bigger divide, and again, anyone can answer this, how do you think this is going to impact society with more people that are awakening and more people that are landing maybe in the 3D muggle vision world? Like, how are we going to coexist with each other or not?
No, I don't want to keep talking. Okay.
Keep talking.
I think
Anyone can chime in.
all the technological advances that are being made, there is a blur happening between reality and the technical world. Like even when you're interacting on some of these platforms, you may be interacting with a bot and not even know it. And so this whole blending of the virtual and reality is getting way more blurred.
Yeah.
Anna or Bethany?
I was just going to add that I agree there will be more awakenings, whether people realize it or not, or whether they label it that or not, because the more the structures crumble beneath people's foundations, it awakens whether you want to awake or not. Um, I'm not sure folks will know what to do with it or
Yeah.
even know what's happening, but they'll feel everything I knew to be true, the structures, government, whatever, um, is actually very questionable. Perhaps it's a bot. Um, and so now I'm awake, and now what? And it's almost like going back to the Matrix where Neo takes the red, I think it was the red pill, blue pill, red pill. And the entire structure of his world completely crumbles, and then he sees another reality. And I think that reality, due to especially AI and all the concerns with it, will be more and more blurred. Yeah.
Bethany, anything you'd like to add in on that?
Yeah, I think that's definitely it. I mean, I think we're seeing kind of, yeah, the old reality just completely crumbling, and people are really scared of that, right? Like we all know that. Like we know that people will like choose the hill to die on over things that don't necessarily benefit them, right? And so they're digging in their heels. They're trying to not let something happen that is inevitably happening. So yeah, the divide is really happening, but I think that I think that's exactly it. It doesn't matter because it's not sustainable, right? Like they're holding on to something that doesn't exist. It never really did. The illusion's just coming apart at the seams now, and it's crumbling, but they're kind of trying to piece it back together, and eventually that just isn't going to work, right? So like if this is the path they want to take, and I think even in individual lives we see that a lot. Like we've all held on to like partnerships that everyone is like, what are you doing? Like we've all like held on to jobs that everyone is like, are you insane? Like what are you doing? Like we've all done that on individual levels. So like if we can do it on the individual, we'll do it on the collective. And it's just, I think that's the place where we try to find the forgiveness and the compassion of just seeing that this is what they're choosing to do right now. This is the path that this is part of their process. They're digging in their heels, and it's like, all right, we'll wait this out. But like, I think it is going to be really hard because if you think about the people that have really bought into these systems, it's like almost like a shrinking of the mind. They have a really hard time, not that they can't, but they have a hard time conceptualizing of anything outside of this very straight and narrow path because that's all they've been taught. That's all that's been mirrored back to them. That's what's worked for them in a lot of ways. And so you're taking all of that from them, and they're still kind of on that hamster wheel of thought without realizing that there's a whole separate reality that's operating around them. And I think that's the really alarming piece, like that I think it's going to be kind of a slow transition for them to recognize how to even interact with that world because they're so used to and you can even see it, like I think playing out, like I see it on LinkedIn like every day where it's like people are having trouble finding these corporate jobs right now and people are getting laid off, and you still see in the comments, like they'll be posting like looking for work or whatever, and you still see in the comments people like, just get a job at Starbucks, or like they're still mirroring that like same reality that's not working, or they're like, well, just try harder, or just hustle, or you should be getting up at 5, or like you see the like regurgitation of this old way of doing things, even though the person is like listing out all of these things that they've tried, but it's like they can't conceptualize. They're still stuck in that paradigm of like, if you do XYZ, this is the outcome you're going to get, even though that's like black and white in their face. No, X plus Y does not equal Z. They're like, no, but it has to equal Z. And you're like, it doesn't equal Z, but that's fine. That's fine. We're just going to loop this for a while until we like elevate out of it. So like, I think that's kind of what we're in. We're watching people dig in their heels. And I think that's like, you know, I don't know, I think that's where we can maybe try to tap into the compassion, even though they're not making it easy on us, but like toddlers throwing tantrums don't make it easy on us either, right? But like we still learn to like try to have that compassion because we see like the programming and you can only know what you know and what you've been taught and what you've had reflected back to you. So it's like, you know, awakening is not an easy process. Spirituality is not an easy path. I think all of us that have walked it definitely know that, you know, dark nights of the soul and having your entire stability stripped, like all of these things are not easy paths. And so yeah, I think that's what we're looking at. I think that's where we can kind of like try to hold our own space and not get caught up in the drama of it and try to find that compassion place, I guess.
I really like how you guys all just put that. So, what do you guys recommend? Because it does sound like there's going to be some disillusionment and some breaking down, and people like maybe I think in the beginning someone said it felt like quicksand, you know, feeling like you're kind of being buried down. What maybe some spiritual tools, such as crystals or affirmations or meditation techniques, can help individuals maybe stay aligned with the cosmic wisdom throughout the year? And anyone can take the lead on that.
Flowing, not forcing. Like it's happening. You can dig in and get dragged, or you can release and let go when you're urged to. And the real thing that you have power over is your reaction. So don't have a really crazy reaction. Go to gratitude. Figure out what's around you. If you lose your job, you're being moved. It's exciting. Like being fired can be a wonderful thing. Could be your corporate exit ramp you've been waiting for, the push you needed to start your own company or whatever's happening. So the universe doesn't take things away without replacing it with something better. There can be growing pains in between, but it's really about your reaction. If you can stay positive and find gratitude in everything you have, you're going to be okay.
I love
It's up to
that.
you
Yeah.
how painful it is.
I
Yeah.
love that. And, you know, just speaking from my own real experience, I was laid off in 2017 from a corporate job. And during that 4 month layoff is when I started Spiritual Lab. And I worked nonstop for 17 years before that layoff. And it was such a shock. And then I ended up having the best time of my life. So I think, yeah, just to tack on to what Joyce said, flow. I'm a river, not a rock. Surrender. And even though I know, you know, even some of my clients might like, I see an exasperation in their face when I suggest this, but meditation or finding whatever your still place is. We're bombarded with so many notifications and from social media to our phones to, you know, it comes from all over. And finding that still quiet space will help connect you to the inner knowing and truth. And you'll be able to at least start to feel out the illusions from your all knowing truth, which is always residing within.
Beautiful. And Bethany, how about for you?
Yeah, I think what I've been really leading a lot of my clients towards, I mean, definitely always like the know thyself, like trying to get as much information, like doing things like astrology, numerology, getting readings, you know, by like trusted sources, of course, or following, you know, people on Instagram that if you are on social media that you find inspiring, like really curating your content and curating your life to kind of match that and start tapping into some of these, even if it's just like reading one book on, you know, quantum theory or like whatever it is, like just starting to get out of this reality that we're kind of constantly in. And then I have also been really utilizing sound healing for a lot of my clients because
Me too.
oh my gosh, it's
Me
such an
too.
awakening right now around
Yes.
that. Yeah, I've used it for like cord cutting for clients even like it's just like one of the most effective tools. I have like a 12-minute one I recommend and like I have them do it for 30 days and it's like their attachment. I mean, it's just like it just cuts through all the noise and I think even like the binaural beats and all of that like for meditation because I have one client who is just like very fast paced. She has a lot of Gemini placement. She's just very quick and her mind is very busy. And so things like the binaural beats for whatever reason because it's there's an activity with it, like, and I sometimes will have her like tap, like she can tap with it. Um, and that helps her really calm down, and it allows her to get into a meditation without just like, okay, sit still, be quiet, because she's like, I can't do it for 2 minutes, like I can't do it. But with the binaural beats, she's like able to get a little bit deeper. So yeah, like I think a lot of the sound healing is really helping, even for like the sound bowls for chakra alignment, like all of that. I feel like there's been such a movement towards that. So I've been like just telling clients to like get as many readings as they can, start using sound healing, start using some of these meditation tools, because again, I really just feel like it's about to get very individual in how we move forward. Like we're very used to having paths, and I think a lot of us are starting to forge our own. And so I think a lot of our guidance is going to have to come from within us. I don't know that there's going to be anybody who's going to be able to say, okay, you go to this, you go to grad school for 4 years, and then you go to med school, and then you do that. Like, we're not going to have that, right? Like, it's very internal compassy. So I think all of those are really good techniques to help clear out the old, clear out anything, and then also get us into a meditative state.
One of the things you brought up, and that's beautiful advice, and anyone can answer this, and is why is discernment and so important when you're finding a spiritual practitioner? Like really trusting your own gut and not just going with like a TikTok witch or somebody like that. Why is that so important? Joy, you look like you want to answer that.
Oh, this is like my soapbox. Like I may not ever stop talking if I start. So it's what I call TikTok numerology or TikTok astrology. And I really respected people in the field who have been doing it for over 10 years. Like Rick Levine is a very trusted astrologer. He said it is going to be lost because what you have is people regurgitating information that they heard or read on a meme, and now they are spreading the word. And it's like, read a book, do some research. Google is not a research tool, neither is AI, because for the metaphysical studies, AI gets all of its information from the web. And some of these people have websites and huge followings, so you think they're trusted. I'm writing my second book right now, and I was doing some research, and the top 20 numerology books, only 3 were written by actual numerologists. The other ones are self-appointed spiritual guides or enlightened souls, and you're completely losing the sacred science of numerology in that. And it's no different for astrology or for, I'm not exactly 100% sure what Annabella does, but it's the same for all modalities.
Well, I mean, it's like I
it's
read
getting
Akashic
lost.
records. It's the same thing. Like I have a training certificate and I went through many, many hours, but anyone now can read a book and be like, I can read your records.
Yeah. Well, and in numerology, you're like, oh, I'm a a spiritual, enlightened guide, intuitive, Akashic tarot reader, astrologist, numerologist. Like,
Are you?
okay, uh-huh. Like, hang all the shingles. Like, just
Check
you know.
credentials.
Well, so, and I'm to the point now where I'm like, who did you train under? And I'm like, who did your teacher train under?
I
I
like
need
that.
more.
I like that. Anyone
Yeah.
else want to respond to that? I think it's really important that you really trust your source and where you're going for readings, because people are getting readings in a vulnerable state and they're going to hang on to anything that you say. And, it's people, unfortunately, intentionally, unintentionally, can wreak havoc on someone. And just that it's definitely a soapbox that I'm passionate about as well. Anyone else want to respond
Yeah.
to that?
Well, what comes to mind after what Joyce said is nowadays there are apps, there's TikTok, and I hear a lot about folks finding their readers on platforms like TikTok. I hear a lot of, especially younger people talking about, do you have CoStar? Do you have this? My CoStar said this and that. Um, And that's fine as a gateway. If you find, a real great reader on TikTok and that's your gateway
Yeah.
into numerology or astrology, amazing. Um, it's like octopus, put feelers and sensors all out there, and however people come into it, great. I would just advise folks that take it to a deeper level. And my only one issue with an app like CoStar, it's very topical, and it gives you the calculations and gives you a profile. But if you really want to apply it to yourself to understand yourself and your place in the world and your code, your cosmic code, then I would strongly advise to seek out accredited, astrologer and someone who can take your calculations and now really help you interpret it in a deep and meaningful way.
Absolutely. Because one thing I've noticed with astrology, and I'm not sure if you guys have noticed this, is that I'll have like one of my friends and she'll like, well, you're this. This is why your computer
Yeah.
doesn't work. And I'm like, it's because my IT sucks. Like it's like this doom and gloom. We're really, I feel like astrology and numerology and these tools can be really used to maybe shed a light on something, identify something,
Sure.
and then empower me to maybe shift. Has anyone noticed that? Like it's my one friend, I'm like, stop. Like it scares me. She's like, well, let me look over your moon and your Mercury is. I'm like, please don't. Please don't. Please don't.
Well, it's sensationalized. But I know for myself, I will never give a client a negative reading without giving them a tool to help them. Like
Love
I will,
that.
I'm not going to tell you something negative and not tell you what you can do to bring yourself out of it or to shift or change it. So I think that's important. And I know too right now, if I had $1 for every client that wants to be a life coach or a human design reader or astrologist, like, okay, so go get some education. I mean, all of us here have spent many, many years getting very well versed and,
Yeah,
developing that expertise.
absolutely. Bethany, anything you want to add in? You look very serious.
Oh, do I look very serious? Yeah, actually, I
She's
just
soaking it all in.
soaking it all in. I actually did like talk about this on a podcast just the other day, so it's weird that you brought it up. Yeah, so like I I trained in intuitive development before I did anything else, and that was like I guess my first entranceway into like the spiritual realm. So I had like a mentor, I sat in circle, I did like a lot of intuitive readings before I even started tarot and astrology. And I had a mentor through that, and she was very, very accurate in a lot of ways. Um, and she was like a medium and everything. But sometimes like she would tell me things that I didn't feel like resonated, but I didn't like but I kind of was fighting myself with it of like, okay, does it not resonate because it's something I don't want to hear, or does it not resonate because it's like truly not for me?
Mm.
And over time or whatever, and once I got into my own like power and spiritual practice or whatever, I looked back on it and I was like, no, it was just kind of like her limited viewpoint of how things worked, I guess. And so it was kind of like her own stuff getting a little bit in the way. But that's everybody. Like every reader has their own stuff, like because we're human beings, right? So we all have our own karma, our own limitations, and our own whatever. So like I think, yeah, like even with any reading, even if you trust the reader, even if you do any of that, I think like for me, I really have people like sit with that. Like, does that actually resonate with you? Or I could even feel myself when I would respond to her. This is like something I've taught a few people of just like, I'd be like, I could feel my voice like almost shrink. And I would just kind of be like, oh, okay, like I'll try that. And it was just indicative of like, no, this is just not good advice for me because it's not my path or whatever. Versus like, I've had lots of readings where people have told me really hard things about myself of like, you see this pattern, right? And you're like, yeah, no, I see that pattern. Like, yeah, no, that tracks. Like, like deep down, if it's something that really resonates with you or not. So like, I think just kind of, I mean, definitely try to vet the source out, but I think also too, like, even like like they say a broken clock is right twice a day. So even if they're like, you get into the session, you're like, this is not the best reader ever. Like they might have a nugget or two because they're opening themselves up as a channel to, the divine. So that you might get a nugget or two out of it, even if like a lot of it's not accurate. And then the other way around, you could have a reader that's giving you 3/4 of gems, and then one or two things you're like, that just like didn't land. I don't know why. It just doesn't feel right to me. Like you feel yourself shrink, you feel yourself kind of like agreeing to it, even if you don't really agree to it. So I don't know. I think definitely, but yeah, I mean, I think having been in LA, I mean, they just had the like HBO documentary on Breath of Fire on like the Kundalini yoga thing, which like I know so many people in that documentary. I was like horrified, but like,
That's fascinating.
yeah, it was so crazy. Like, but
But
I mean,
why is it a cult? Like it was
it
so
was
scary.
a cult. It was such a cult. But like, yeah, but I mean, obviously, like in LA, that was one of the. I mean, that's like who Russell Brand went to. Like, there's so many celebrities that, and I don't think the yoga practice itself, like, I think he kind of jacked some of it from like that was what I heard even then before this whole documentary came out, which is again like the broken clock, right? Like I think he probably landed on some nuggets that he took from other practitioners and said that he created, but like I mean, yeah, I think that, but I mean, that center and like had, thousands and thousands of followers. It made millions of dollars. It had like more celebrities than you can name that were like really strict adherence to it. Like, and then they revealed it for all of this really horrible stuff that's like going on behind the scenes, right? So like, even if you were vetting them and the guru who was like in charge of that claimed she had the lineage to back herself up, right? Like she claimed, oh, I studied under the guy who created it. So if you were doing just lineage, just follower count, just like credibility, right? Like she would have been at the top of that chain, but it was like total corruption the whole way down, right? So it's like, I mean, I think it really again just has to be your own insight and
Yeah.
even if you ended up like in a session with her or something, like she might have been right, like one or two things, like, you never know, I guess. But like, yeah, I think it's really just like, does it resonate with you individually and just do as much research as you can. But I think that gut instinct is really going to help lead us because I think most people who interacted with some of the leaders of that were like, something's really weird. Like I watched one of the leaders yell at an assistant in a class that was at my meditation studio, and I was like, something is like wrong with her. Like that is not like an accurate like thing to do. So like the gut instinct was like something is really off with how these people are acting, right? And so I think even that, like you just trust that and you can start to really get into like what resonates with me and what doesn't. And then walking out of the reading, like just take what you feel like you can move forward with. And if it doesn't, if it's bad advice for you specifically, like that's fine. Just leave it. You don't have to, just because they told you that and just because they're right about something else or they have a like big following, like this is your life. It's your consequences, right? Like if you do the thing, then it's like if you quit the job and you were supposed to stay 6 more months, like that's your consequence, right? Like so whatever it is, you have to make that final decision regardless.
Absolutely. And really taking ownership of your life and really maybe honing in on it to your intuitive self. Like, what is my gut telling me? What am I really feeling into this? I love the idea of, you might have a reading that's maybe not driving with you, but take the nuggets and leave what doesn't fit for you, or a reading that's excellent. But I also want to bring up the fact that mentors aren't meant to be in your life forever. Like they're kind of the training wheels and then help you to get to the next step, and then maybe you're seeking out another mentor. And I think sometimes we might fall into cult, like, oh my gosh, this mentor has 1 million followers, they must be the best. And it's, you got to really hone into that intuitive self and really take ownership of your own life and your own path. And as we wrap this up, I'm going to ask you guys, is there any piece of advice that maybe you want to impart on the listeners to help them navigate 2025, or really any intuitive nugget of wisdom that is coming to you? And I'm going to start with Joy, that you want to wrap this up with.
Okay, well, 9 years all about humanitarianism. And so I think it's a time for healing. I think as we divide, we can heal, but don't be afraid to let go. It will be replaced with something better, and just be kind. Kindness is magic.
I believe that. Annabella, what would you like to leave us with?
Yeah, I'm going to echo our earlier message of flow and surrender, and find a minute of stillness if it gets to be too much. And one is never alone. We're all interconnected and we're all in this together.
True. Bethany, any piece of advice you have for us?
I feel like it's been said. Yeah, like definitely we're all in this together. Like no one's going through this alone. And yeah, I think finding resources and community is going to be huge. And yeah, just going with the flow. Like if it's leaving, let it go. If it's coming in, examine it. I mean, there's really, I think a lot of it's about surrendering our control or a sense of control. So I think that's the best advice you can have is just let it go.
Let it go. Let it go and let it be. I want to thank you all so much for coming on the Spiritual Spotlight series and truly taking time out of your very busy days and sharing all of your beautiful cosmic wisdom. Thank you all so much.